there are some characters you can't use in a file name. As you'll see in today's lab, the characters you can't use are special characters that are used by the operating system command.com program to be included in certain commands. So these are special reserved characters. And you can use the period only between the main file name and the extension. And there's still limitations today. Now, our operating system today can handle much bigger file names. It's not limited to just 8. It can go up to 255. So we can type a whole sentence for the name of a file. But it used to be that 8 was all you could do. If you want to restart your computer, there's two ways in the operating system. One was to use a Control-Alt-Delete. I just did that on my computer just now. I just clicked Control-Alt-Delete. Now, Linux does it a little different. It brings up a shutdown menu here. And the same thing happens with Windows. If you do that, you get a shutdown menu also. But you can also do you can also run, check to see what tasks are running. Do that in Linux, but it's a different way. So that's called Control-Alt-Delete. And if you cold boot, which means if your computer just freezes up, you can just have to turn it off and turn it back on. I mentioned config.sys a while ago. That's just a configuration file that DOS used to use. We don't use it anymore, but it was pretty important at one time, and that was because it had all the stuff in it about all the features of your computer, all the different hardware that the operating system had to communicate with. Well, I want to look at, and the config.sys would have commands and could have configuration in there of different features of the operating system. I want to look at the labs we're going to do today, specifically here. While you're loading your operating system, what you want to do is you want to put the operating system on your a CD in the drive, and you want to wait till the computer tells you to press Enter to boot off the CD. You don't want it to try to boot off the hard drive. It'll put up a message. And it should pretty much take off on its own. But it will ask you a few questions like what you want to call the computer's name. You can name it whatever you want. One thing you don't want to do is put an administrator password on your computer, because we're not trying to keep people out. You're going to keep it in your locker. You put an administrator password if you want people not to be able to change it. But what happens if you forget your administrator password? Unfortunately, it's very difficult to. You can wipe it out, but it's not convenient to do that. So just leave the administrator password blank when you do the XP clean installation here. Okay. When you do these other labs, while that's loading, there's a lab called Command Prompt, and that's going to explore the command prompt I was just showing you. Just how to get to it and what it does for you. And then one called Copy, which is the copy command. And what's copy do for you? Well, it copies files. And it has a lot of features that it can do for you. It can copy files from one place to another. It can copy it in the same location. It can copy it inside of one folder. It can copy from one folder to another or from one drive to another. So pay close attention to the way the copy command works. It really explains nicely in our lab how that works. But here's how you can get help on a command like copy. You go to Windows and let's see here. And you let's say you want to find out about a particular command. You would type in the name of the command by copy. Here's something neat you can do in the command prompt. You can make the font bigger. So let's say I want to make it bigger so we can see it better here. There, it made it bigger. Okay. So I want to see a command. I type copy and then / and it will tell me the features of that command. That looks kind of ugly when you do that, doesn't it? But that lists them there. Lists all the different features. These are called switches. The slash. So you can copy files. Now that's kind of cryptic. I realize it the first time. It's just a little reference there. So that's why the lab is going to step you through some of the features of the copy command. How do you copy in the graphical user interface? Well, you do it by just simply dragging, folders. If I wanted to copy a, say here, say I wanted to copy this folder here to another location, I would simply drag it, right, to another location. Now that actually moved it. That wasn't copying it, was it? I want to copy it, so I'd use my right mouse button, and then I want to copy here. Now I made another one, and whatever was inside of it was just copied over. But when you do it with a copy command, you have to tell copy what folder you want to, by name, what folder you want to copy, and you have to tell it where it's located, unless you're located at that same location. Now, how do you know where you're located? Well, if you go to the command prompt here, it always tells you where you're located. So like right here, Documents and Settings, that's my location. I'm in Documents and Settings, Me. I could go over here and go to that same location. In fact, I just have to go up a couple levels. Oops, there's Documents. Oops, back. Documents and Settings, Me. There it is, Documents and Settings, Me. And then I could go up here and change that. There. And now I'm in the same location using the Explorer that I am up here. Now if I type the command dir directory, it lists those same things but does it with text instead of graphics. Okay. So that's the copy command. Then the directory command I just showed you, it has a lot of options. So Lab 11 explains some of those different options that you have for the directory command. And then Lab 12 is just how to get help when you want to get help on a command. I already showed you how you do that one way. Another way is to type help and the name of the file. And then the last lab, 13, is file attributes. File attributes, last thing here is, if you go to the DOS prompt, see, here we are. If I type, I have to get into something that has some files. So let's go down here a second. I mean, go up a level. Are there some files there? I'm at the root now. You see how this says C:? If I type attrib, attrib, it will list the attributes of all the files that are in the root of the hard drive. Now, the root means it's the top of the file structure. You might think it'd be the bottom of the file structure because it's like a tree, because each folder branches out with folders inside of it. You can think of it like a tree. But really they call it the top, because it's an upside-down tree. It branches out going down. So I'm at the root, or the top of the file system, and there are a number of different files in there. And over here it tells me the attributes. This one is a system file, a hidden file, and a read-only file, S, H, and R. This one here is just system and hidden. Config.sys doesn't have any attributes except for this A here. A is called archive, and that's so that you can do a backup, and the backup program will mark that attribute as being archived or to be archived. Watch what happens here if I go attrib config.sys. Oh, I need to I did it in the wrong order. Plus, I do attrib plus R config.sys. Okay, what it did, it didn't show you anything, but what it did is it changed the attribute of config.sys file. Now if I type dir, attrib, dir won't even show it. There we go. Now it says that config.sys is a read-only file. Now if I type edit config.sys, it'll open that file up in the editor. Now there's nothing in config.sys, it's a blank file. But watch what happens if I try to type something. See, it says you cannot modify a read-only file. So I made it read-only and it protects it, so I can't change it. That's why you might want to do that. And why would you hide files? Well, hiding them makes them so they don't show up on either the Explorer, or if you're in the DOS prompt and you hide something, if I type dir, it doesn't show up there. Config.sys shows up, but some of those other files don't show up. They show up if you type attrib, because it'll show all of them. But like there's one called io.sys, it's a hidden file and it doesn't show up. But if I change the attribute to it, where I make it not hidden anymore, I go to attrib -h io.sys. Now, oh, it wouldn't do that because it's a system file. So I got to do something else. I got to go attrib -s -h. I have to do two things at once, meaning I have to make it not a system file anymore. Now, if I type dir, you see IOSys shows up on the list there. And if I go over to Windows Explorer here, and I have to do a refresh because it's not going to show it right away. Oh wait, I gotta go up a couple levels. There it is. There, we're at the root. There it is. You see io.sys shows up now where it wouldn't have before. It would have been invisible. Well, I don't want to leave it like that. I'm going to put it back because that shouldn't be. That file was hidden for a reason to protect it. So I go attrib +h +s io.sys, and I'll take off the read-only attribute on config.sys. So now it's back the way it was. So that's the last level, what they call attributes. And that's something we still have today, but the modern operating systems have expanded on that and added some new features to it, but basically the old features are still there. Okay, so those are the labs to work on while we're doing that. Now, when you work on these labs, you go to our class website here, and each one of these, there's questions at the end of the lab that's for you to answer about the lab. I took those same questions and I put them in here in the form of a quiz. So, like this one here, you when you do the questions that are at the end of your book, you can actually just answer them directly into a file here. You see that I already did that one, but you do that online on the class website. So you can write them in your book if you'd like, or you can write them on a separate piece of paper, or you can just put them into there, and they're in there too. So however you'd like to do that. Some people decide they don't want to write in their lab book. Maybe they want to sell it back, because we can student buy it next semester for the next class. That's too. You can do that. Any questions before we go to lab here?
So that means we don't have to cart the lab book around.
Well, yes, because the instructions for the lab are still in the lab book. I didn't copy all the instructions on the class website. Just too much stuff. I suppose I could, but I don't think the publisher would like me to do that too well. Now we have a key for your locker, and the locker has a computer inside of it. And that locker is called the B locker. So be sure you unlock the B locker and get the computer out of the B locker and put it back in the B locker.